My name is Roy Kang. I teach illustration at InArt Academy. At InArt, I am in charge of teaching illustration, which entails sketching, ideation, and painting. In our illustration class, we usually start out with ideation of our original or adaptation of an already existing story. And then after the ideation part, I usually help them proceed onto sketches and then painting. By ideation, what I mean is usually I'll sit with the students and then we'll go over anything that they could think of. Really, like if they have any original stories that they've worked on creating on their own time, we go over all of those. And we'll either use them as is, or we'll combine it with something new to make something better, or we'll come up with like a reiteration of like a classic story that makes it their own. But through the ideation process, we talk about possible ideas we could get into. Then we'll go through a thumbnail sketching phase for each of those ideas, to then which with critique by me, we'll discuss ideas, sketches, and then we'll choose the final few and then we take it into painting. And then with that, we have a finished portfolio piece. For our illustration class, we usually start out with about a 3-month period of testing out how their basic foundational drawing, painting, and sketching skills are. After the 3-month period, like earlier, it depends on which school that they would like to go to. But if they would like to proceed with the portfolio, then we would continue on to plan out the pieces that each school that they want to go to require. And after planning it out thoroughly, I would say it takes about a year to prep a good portfolio. I think at minimum, you need a year. At least a year, and hopefully, 2 or even more would be great. With a tight timeline, like a year, we don't really have time to go over all the basics and foundation. We kind of have to go straight into just producing portfolio pieces right away. That's definitely not recommended. We don't end up with what could be the best for each student. With more time, like 2 years, I think that gives us half a year to really work on their foundation skills to the best that we can in 6 months. And then we could probably start planning things out and then jump into the portfolio thing right away. To just briefly go over the requirement guidelines for Art Center illustration portfolio, it's 15 to 20 illustrations total. With that, we also include your figure drawings, which is gestures and long poses, as well as your sketchbook pages. We'll try to obviously go over the whole thing, but usually most of the time spent here will be the figure drawing and illustrations. And then I try to work with sketchbooks with the students, working on it at home, and then getting it looked over by the teachers here when they come to class. Generally, for illustration, we do prepare for Art Center, which usually with the guidelines that we have for Art Center, it allows us to pretty much apply to most illustration schools. Not that other schools are normal and Art Center is Art Center, but usually with Art Center portfolios, because they have such a broad ask for requirement, we are usually able to use those pieces for other schools. So every school asks for something a little bit different. But because I teach illustration, and also that's the school I went to, after looking at a bunch of other schools' portfolio requirements, we came to the conclusion that with the Art Center portfolio, it's enough to fill most of the other schools' requirements as well. We usually require students to at least have the basics for a foundation. So graphite pencils, different types of erasers. And then for painting, we do use acrylic the most, just because of how easy it is to manipulate and how quickly the medium is for us to work with. But we do also go over other painting mediums such as watercolor, gouache, or oil paints. But if the student also would like to expand onto digital aspects of drawing and painting, we do ask that they at least have a laptop that they can use a drawing tablet with, which they would use applications such as Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, amongst other drawing applications that they might be more used to. In terms of painting, we do both painting digitally as well as traditional. However, with my experience at Art Center and with my experience of the previous couple years having helped students get into Art Center among other art schools, I learned that They do prefer traditional just because, well, the reason why the students complain is that it's harder. It takes more time and dedication. So because the schools also know that, they value traditional work much heavier than digital. But we try to do both. It is pretty difficult in handling a classroom with both beginners, intermediate, and more advanced students. Because I do kind of separate their seats, separating them even a little bit, it does help focus on different strengths in each student. Yeah, in terms of the more advanced students, they're able to follow directions pretty well because we do go over the whole ideation, sketching phase together. And once they've gone through that, it is much easier where I don't have to be helping them with every single aspect of drawing and painting. And then during that time, I'm able to focus more on the beginners and the more somewhat intermediate students while that's happening. I don't think a lot of parents would appreciate me saying this, but I think if you want to go into a creative field like illustration, you should read and watch a lot of different types of material. If I'm thinking about their age and where I used to get my inspirations from, it's from all the anime, manga, games, TV shows. I don't encourage them to do that every day because of how much time it robs from their daily activities. But I think opening yourselves up to a broad range of entertainment, I think it helps. I think it helps inspire them to do a lot. It also expands their overall just library. Having all those things in knowledge, like it really does help because we can bring them out for different projects. So one of the first things I look at is their creative interests and how they deal with their interests as well. I think I try to see their personality so that way I don't end up pushing them too hard, but if they're hard workers, then I try to adapt to each student learning style. If they're willing to put in the time, that's also, that's always great. Really listening them out to see what they want to draw and what they like to paint. Trying to identify those things is one of the most important things, and then I could try to help expand on that. Because if they're not motivated, you can tell, and they don't put in the time and they get lazy. So I try to keep an eye out for what they like to do personally, even on their own time. And then I try to see how I could connect that with work. How much the teachers usually try to listen at a personal level with the students, that's probably, if not one of our greatest strength is that we actually care about where they go and what they do. We usually try to look out for what they would like to do when they grow up and what's their dream school and why. And we actually try to cater to those things as much as possible. Currently, I think if I was to address goals or dreams is right now to get all the students in my classes into their top schools. I would hope that they got to the school that they wanted to go and made the friends that they wanted to make. And I hope they're sleeping less, working on their favorite projects at the school that they wish they were at.